I found working with watercolor paper that sometimes for a small painting I can just tape it down, but for most of my work I really need to use the craft tape and stretch the paper on a wooden surface. That's what I'm doing with this paper here. I had tried just taping it down and it started buckling, so usually you should do this before you paint on the paper. As you can see, it kind of bled, so that's not a good thing. So what I would luckily I left a margin. You can see the line around the edges for me to be able to tape this down. So this is going to make it totally flat and stretch out all the buckles that were in this painting. I wish I had showed you before I did it. But anyway, so I find this craft paper at an art supply store, shipping supplies, Amazon, any kind of office store, and it's gummed on one side. And what you do is you'll wet your paper. It has to be wet. You can either dip it like I did in a container, or else just brush it, but you need to brush both sides because it needs to be completely wet. And then here, let's go back to this. I've tried, if you saw that white surface I had taped paintings to, that's what caused the buckling, and it was this kind of paper that's not glued down. Now this one right here I'm going to show is a block of paper, so it's okay because all the edges are going to stay down to help it not buckle. But if it's loose like this, it has to be secured, and sometimes with the masking tape, if you're using any amount of water at all in your watercolor painting, it's going to probably cause buckling, especially with this kind that's hot press, because it's not quite as thick as the really coarse watercolor papers. So I'm going to just, after I've soaked it, lay it down and then soak my paper, my craft paper, and just work my way around. And unlike if you think about you might be tempted to work like when you're putting the bolts back, or the nuts and bolts or whatever on your tire of your car, you do like a star. You don't want to do that. You want to work your way around the painting so that you can keep stretching it as you go. So because you want to make sure that as you're smoothing it down, you're not creating more buckles in the paper. In fact, I could see one right now, and after this video I actually went back and re-stretched everything so it was completely flat. And after I put down all the tape, I'm going to let it dry for 24 hours before I paint on it. It needs to be completely dry, and the tape needs to be completely dry, and this is going to keep it taut and able to be painted on and just keep it totally secure to keep all the and stretch so that you won't get the buckling when it dries. So if you watch my next video next week, I will show you the finished process and how I cut it off and display it. So stay tuned for that next week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below.